The soft drink hit her head like cold rain. Inside the busy supermarket, people froze as the cold brown liquid splashed over Madame Hannah's grey hair, her wrinkled face, and her old faded blue gown. The plastic bottle in Janet's hand was turned completely upside down, and not a single drop was left inside. Gasps filled the air. Then someone laughed. Then another. And soon, several people were laughing and pointing. "See her head," boy giggled. "Old dirty beggar," another woman muttered. Madame Hannah stood there, shaking. The soft drink ran down her face and neck, soaking her dress until it clung to her thin body. Her eyes shone with tears as she tried to wipe her face with her trembling hands. Janet, in her expensive navy blue suit and sharp high heels, folded her arms and smirked. Her makeup was perfect, her nails long and painted, her handbag designer and shiny. She looked like a queen standing over a broken servant. "You, this lazy poor widow," Janet said loudly so everyone could hear. "You wasted your youthful years being lazy. Now you are old and poor, and you want me to pity you." Some people looked away, uncomfortable. Others stayed and watched, curious. A few were still laughing. Madame Hannah opened her mouth. "My daughter, I did not." "Keep quiet," Janet snapped. "Do you know who I am? I work for Cross-Tech." "Do you know Cross-Tech? Billion-dollar tech company. I do not give my money to lazy people who refuse to work. Go and beg your mates, not me." She lifted the soft drink bottle higher. Before anyone could move, before the security guard could step in, Janet emptied the rest of the drink on the old woman's head, shaking the bottle so that every last drop fell on her. The supermarket went silent for one long, heavy second. Then the whispers started. Then the phones came out. People began recording. Madame Hannah's shoulders shook as she cried quietly. She held on to her old, tattered handbag as if it was the only safe thing left in the world. And in that moment, as soda dripped onto the shiny supermarket floor, no one knew that this poor widow had the power to change every life in that room, especially Janet's. Right there, with the crowd staring and the cameras recording, Madame Hannah slowly reached into her wet handbag and brought out a simple black phone. She wiped her hand, unlocked it, and pressed one number. The phone rang. She held it to her ear. Her voice was soft but steady. "Come and pick me," she said. "Use the full team." She ended the call. Janet rolled her eyes. "Who did you call? Your fellow beggars?" The crowd laughed again. But just a few minutes later, the sound of many car engines filled the street outside. Black SUVs. More than one. More than two. They pulled up in front of the supermarket in a tight line. And when the doors opened and men in black suits stepped out and began to run toward the entrance, every single person inside turned to look at the soaked old woman standing under the bright supermarket lights. Janet's smile slowly began to fade. Hours before that moment, nothing seemed strange at all. That same morning, Janet walked into the supermarket like she owned the building. Her navy blue suit hugged her body perfectly. Her white inner shirt was spotless and crisp. Her wig was straight and shiny, and her lips were painted a bold red. She walked in heels that clicked loudly on the tiles, as if each step was a reminder. "I am better than you. I am going higher. No one can talk to me anyhow." Her friend Chioma hurried behind her, pushing a shopping cart. "Janet, slow down now," Chioma said, breathing fast. "We are just buying snacks for the office." Janet smiled proudly. "It is not just snacks, Chioma. These snacks are for Cross-Tech staff. We are top employees of a big tech company. We must look like it." She flipped her hair and raised her chin. Chioma giggled. "You are not yet top employee. You are just a staff." "Not for long," Janet replied. "My boss said I might be promoted soon. One day I will sit at the top. People will bow when I pass. You will see." They moved down the aisle, picking drinks, biscuits, and some juice for the office break room. Janet stopped in front of the fridge and took a cold soft drink, the same one she would later pour on someone's head. "Let me take this one for myself," she said. "I deserve it. I work hard." Chioma nodded. "It has not been easy since your dad died." For a brief second, Janet's smile dropped. Her father had been strict but loving. He taught her to be strong, to speak up, and to never let anyone push her down. But after he died, her mother struggled. Bills piled up. Janet had promised herself she would never be poor again. Never be desperate. Never be like those people who begged outside. She took a deep breath and pushed away the memory. "I am fine," she said quickly. "And I am never going back to poverty. Never. People who are poor now are just lazy or foolish." Chioma murmured, unsure. They moved toward the counter. At the same time, on the other side of town, Madame Hannah stood in front of a small mirror in her one-room apartment. Her hands shook a little as she tied her old headscarf. She was a 6-8-year-old widow, with tired eyes but a gentle smile. Her blue gown was faded and had a small tear at the side. She adjusted it with careful fingers. She picked up her worn brown handbag, the same handbag she had carried for years. Inside it, she placed her black phone, a small handkerchief, and a folded photograph of a young man in a graduation gown, her only son. She pressed her fingers against the photograph for a moment and closed her eyes. "My boy," she whispered, "you told me not to be afraid. You said I should live, so I will live. I will see the world you built." Her son had died just a few months ago. The pain was still sharp, like a fresh cut. But along with the pain came something she had never expected. A company, Crosstech. Her son had started it in his tiny room as a young man and turned it into a billion-dollar tech company. After his death, the lawyers had told her, "Madam, you are now the owner. Everything is in your name." She had stared at them, shocked. Her, the woman who once sold vegetables in the market, owner of a billion-dollar company. Some days she still found it hard to believe. And yet, it was true. But today, she did not dress like a rich woman. She did not wear gold. She did not use makeup. She dressed just like the old market woman she used to be. Because today, she wanted to see something. She wanted to see how people treated someone who looked poor, someone who looked weak, someone they thought had nothing. She took a deep breath and stepped out into the busy Lagos street. Hours later, that choice would lead her to Janet. Back in the supermarket, Janet was at the counter when she heard a shaky voice behind her. "Please, my daughter, can you help me with a small drink and bread? I have not eaten since morning." Janet turned. There, standing a few steps away, was Madame Hannah in her faded gown and old scarf, hugging her handbag to her chest. Her eyes were tired but kind. She did not push. She did not grab. She just stood there, waiting, with hope in her eyes. Janet looked her up and down slowly. Chioma whispered, "Maybe we can buy her something small. Are you serious?" Janet cut in sharply. "Do you know how many poor people are in Lagos? If I start helping one, they will all line up." "No way." She walked closer to the old woman. "You, this lazy poor widow," Janet said, her voice rising. "You wasted your youthful years lazing around, and now you turn beggar and want me to pity you. You should be ashamed." Chioma tugged at her sleeve. "Janet, people are looking." But Janet was not listening. Anger and pride mixed inside her like hot fire. "I work in a big company," she continued loudly. "Crosstech, do you know it? Billion-dollar company. I cannot be throwing my money at every old person who refuses to plan their life." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "My daughter, please," she said softly. "If you hear my story, you will understand." "I do not care about your story," Janet snapped. Cameras were already pointing at them. Janet lifted her soft drink. "You want pity?" she said. "Here, take it." And in one quick, horrible moment, she poured the drink right on the widow's head. Liquid splashed everywhere. The old woman cried out softly. The crowd gasped. For a few seconds, the only sound was the dripping drink hitting the tiles. Then the laughter started. Janet smiled, feeling powerful, until she saw the old woman straighten her back, wipe her face, and calmly pull a phone out of her handbag. She made that strange, quiet call. And now, those black SUVs had arrived. The men in suits were running in. The security guards were pushing the glass doors open wide. Everyone turned from the entrance to the soaked old woman in the middle of the supermarket. One of the guards rushed in, eyes wide, and when he saw her, he did something that made the whole supermarket freeze. He bent his knees. "Ma," he said, voice full of respect. "We are here." Janet's heart slammed against her chest. "Ma?" Right there, with soda still running down her face and people staring at her in shock, Madame Hannah slowly lifted her head and opened her mouth to speak. For a moment, the supermarket felt like the whole world had stopped breathing. The lead security guard, a tall man in a black suit with an earpiece and polished shoes, remained kneeling before the soaked old woman. Behind him, 4 more guards rushed in, checking corners, scanning the crowd, and forming a protective circle around her. Phones slowly lowered. Whispers died. Even the supermarket speakers seemed to go quiet. Janet's fingers loosened around her empty soft drink bottle until it slipped from her hand and rolled across the tiles. The guard spoke again, louder this time. "Ma, your convoy is outside. We came as soon as you called." Madame Hannah blinked slowly, water dripping from her chin, her gown clinging to her thin frame. And then she lifted her head. Her eyes were no longer shaking with fear. They were calm, steady, strong. "Thank you," she said in a quiet voice. "Please stand." The guard rose immediately. His face showed deep respect, almost fear. Janet's heart dropped. This cannot be happening. This cannot be real. Chioma grabbed her arm. Janet, wait. Is she someone important?" Before Janet could answer, another security guard stepped forward and opened a large umbrella, holding it over Madame Hannah's head even though they were still indoors. A woman in a dark suit entered the supermarket next, holding a folder to her chest. "Ma," she said with a small bow, "your lawyers are also outside." They arrived with the convoy. The crowd reacted again, louder this time. Lawyers? Convoy? Security guards? Someone whispered, "Is she a politician?" Another whispered, "Is she the governor's mother?" A man near the refrigerator muttered, "This woman might be richer than all of us put together." But no one dared step close, except Janet, who was now shaking so hard her teeth almost chattered. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Madame Hannah turned slowly toward her. Her wrinkled face was still wet and stained with soda, her gown still soaked. Yet somehow, she looked like the most powerful person in the room. With everyone watching, she took one small step toward Janet. The supermarket staff parted like water. Janet froze. Madame Hannah stopped right in front of her. "You asked if I know Cross-Tech," she said softly. A hush fell over the room. Janet swallowed hard. "Yes, Ma, I work there." "Do you?" the old woman whispered. Chioma covered her mouth. The crowd leaned closer. Even the guards stood still. Janet nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma. I am an employee." Madame Hannah looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Then she said the words that dropped like thunder. "I am the new CEO of Cross-Tech." Janet's knees almost gave way. Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to breathe, but there was no air in the room anymore. The supermarket exploded with noise. "What? Cross-Tech? She's the CEO? The old widow?" Janet stumbled backward and hit the shelves behind her. Biscuit packs fell on her feet, but she didn't even feel them. "Ma, CEO?" she whispered. Madame Hannah nodded gently. "After the death of my only son, everything he built was left in my care. His company, Cross-Tech, is now mine." Janet's hands flew to her face. Her heart pounded so loudly, she thought everyone could hear it. The poor widow I insulted, the woman I poured drink on, the person I mocked in front of everyone, is my boss. Tears filled her eyes instantly. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean." Before she could finish, one of the guards stepped forward, anger burning in his eyes. "She poured a drink on you, Ma," he said. "Do you want us to arrest her?" The entire crowd gasped. Janet collapsed to her knees. "No, please," she cried. "Please. Don't arrest me. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know who she was." She bent her head so low it nearly touched the floor. "I am sorry, Ma. Please forgive me." Then something even more shocking happened. Janet grabbed the soft drink bottle lying on the floor, lifted it, and poured the last drops onto her own head. A stunned silence filled the supermarket. People stared, not believing what they were seeing. She emptied it completely, shaking her hand until every drop fell on her hair, her face, her clothes. "I deserve it," she cried. "I deserve more. Please forgive me. Please don't fire me. Please, please." Chioma knelt beside her, crying too. "I told her to stop, Ma," Chioma said through tears. "She didn't listen to me. Please forgive her. Please." But Madame Hannah raised a hand gently. "Stand up," she said. Her voice carried the softness of a mother and the strength of a leader. Janet looked up slowly, face wet and trembling. She stood on shaky legs. The guards stepped back. The crowd watched in total silence. Madam Hannah looked straight into Janet's eyes. "You treated me with cruelty when you thought I was weak," she said calmly. "Now you fear me because you know I have power." Fresh tears rolled down Janet's cheeks. "But power is never the reason to do good or to do evil," the old woman continued. "Many people in this world treat others badly simply because they can." She wiped her own face with her wet scarf. "I will not be one of them." The crowd gasped softly. Janet stared, confused. "Ma, are you forgiving me?" Hannah did not smile. She simply nodded. "Yes, stand tall. You will meet me in my office tomorrow when I officially resume as CEO." Janet blinked fast. Will you sack me?" "No," Hannah said. "I have a different plan." Before Janet could ask another question, the guards gently guided the CEO toward the exit. As they reached the supermarket doors, a hush fell again. Everyone moved aside respectfully. The convoy outside looked like something from a movie. Shiny black SUVs lined up, lights on, doors open. A female assistant held a fresh towel. A male guard opened the door for her. People outside stared in shock as the old woman stepped out. Janet watched from inside, shaking so hard her legs felt numb. As the door closed behind the CEO, Janet realized something heavy and terrifying. Tomorrow, she would have to face her. The convoy engines roared to life. The SUVs moved. The glass doors settled. Inside the supermarket, someone whispered, "Tomorrow will be fire." And they were right. Because what waited for Janet the next day was only the beginning. Morning came faster than Janet wanted. She barely slept. Her pillow was wet from crying. Her stomach twisted like she swallowed stones. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the old woman covered in soft drink. The same woman who was now her CEO. The same woman she insulted, mocked, humiliated, and drenched with a bottle of soda. Janet's alarm rang at 5:30 a.m. She jumped. Today is the day. The day she meets me. The day everything changes. For better or worse. Her hands shook as she dressed carefully. Not in a flashy navy suit like yesterday. Not in the outfits that made her feel above everyone. No. She wore a simple white blouse and a plain black skirt. No bold lipstick. No shiny jewelry. No high heels that clicked proudly on the floor. Even her wig was tied back quietly, almost like she was hiding part of herself. She wanted to look humble. She wanted to look sorry, because she truly was. As she stood in front of the mirror, she whispered to herself, "Please God, let her forgive me again today." She felt a deep shame, the kind that sits inside your bones and refuses to leave. Every time she remembered how she poured that drink, how she called Madam Hannah lazy, how she insulted her age, her poverty, and her life, something in her chest hurt. Why did I do that? Why did I treat her like she wasn't human? Who made me judge people like that? She didn't know. All she knew was that she wished she could turn back time, just to undo that moment. But time doesn't go backwards, and today she would see the consequences. By 8 a.m., the entire company Crosstech was on fire with rumors. The security guards stood straighter. The cleaners whispered in corners. The front desk staff kept glancing at the entrance every second. Even directors and managers looked nervous. Everyone had received the same message. New CEO arriving today. All staff must assemble at reception by 9 a.m. No name. No photo. Just a time and place. Janet stood among the staff, her palms cold. Chioma stood behind her, rubbing her shoulder. "Janet, don't faint, please," Chioma whispered. "I'm trying," Janet whispered back. The reception hall was packed. Over 200 employees lined up neatly. Everyone wore their best clothes and their most polite faces. At exactly 8:58 a.m., a sound cut through the air. Sirens, engines, tires on the pavement. People rushed to the windows. "Convoy!" a man shouted. "Black SUVs!" Another whispered. "Ah, these are not normal cars. Oh, this one is high level." 10 black SUVs rolled into the compound, shining like polished mirrors. Security officers stepped out, forming a line on both sides. A woman in a grey suit held a tablet. A man with glasses checked a list. Then, the car at the center opened. A quiet hush washed over the building as the short, elderly widow stepped out clean, neatly dressed, and wearing a simple but beautiful blue lace gown. Her grey hair was brushed and tied with a soft scarf. Her handbag was new, her eyes calm, her steps steady. She looked nothing like the woman who stood soaked in soda yesterday. Nothing like the woman Janet insulted. Nothing like the beggar people laughed at. She looked powerful, important, respected. She looked like someone standing in her destiny. The guards bowed lightly. The staff outside gasped. "Welcome, Ma." "Good morning, Ma." "We are honored to have you, Ma." It was so strange, so incredible, that some people nearly cried just seeing her. But inside the building, everyone was frozen. The senior HR manager whispered, "Is she the CEO?" Someone else said, "She looks so gentle." "Are we sure?" Another muttered, "Gentle people are the most powerful. Haven't you heard?" Finally, the automatic glass doors opened, and she stepped into the reception. Silence swallowed the entire building. You could hear a pin drop, a breath, a heartbeat. Even the air conditioner sounded too loud. Madam Hannah looked at everyone slowly, carefully, without pride. "Good morning, everyone," she said. Her voice was soft, yet it carried through the hall like a bell. Instantly, every staff member bowed slightly, placing their right hand on their chest in respect. "Good morning, Ma," they all echoed. She nodded, smiling kindly. "Thank you for the warm welcome. Today marks a new chapter for CrossTech." People clapped gently, but as she stepped forward, her eyes moved, searching, scanning, until they landed on one person, Janet. Her heart nearly stopped. Their eyes met. Janet looked down immediately, her whole body shaking. Madam Hannah said nothing, but the message was clear. "We will talk soon." After the welcome speech, staff returned to work, except Janet. Her heart wouldn't stop pounding. Her palms were sweating. Her clothes clung to her back. Every time a door opened, she jumped. Every time a guard walked by, she almost fainted. Finally, at exactly 10:15 a.m., her desk phone rang. She froze. Her lips parted as she reached for the receiver with trembling fingers. "Hello?" she whispered. A calm voice answered, "Report to the CEO's office now." She nearly dropped the phone. Chioma held her hand. "It's okay," she whispered. "You can do this." But Janet wasn't sure. She stood. Her legs felt weak. Walking felt like climbing a mountain. Down the hallway, up the elevator, through the carpeted corridor, until she reached the biggest office she had ever seen. A golden nameplate on the door read, "Hannah Oladipo, Chief Executive Officer, CrossTech." Her breath caught. "I don't deserve to knock on this door," she thought. But she had no choice. She raised her hand and knocked softly. "Come in," Hannah's gentle voice said. Janet pushed the door open and froze. The office was beautiful, not fancy with gold and diamonds, but warm, clean, and peaceful. There were plants, bookshelves, sunlight pouring through tall windows. A painting of a young man in graduation gown hung behind the desk her son. Madam Hannah sat behind the desk, wearing glasses and reading a file. She looked up. "Janet," she said softly. Janet burst into tears immediately. "Sorry, Ma. I am so sorry, Ma. I didn't know I didn't. I was—" "Come," the old woman said quietly. "Sit." Janet shuffled forward and sat on the chair opposite her. Her voice shook like a leaf. "Ma, you can sack me. I deserve it. I won't argue. I won't fight. I won't complain." Madam Hannah did not reply immediately. She simply studied the young woman with calm eyes. After a long moment, she spoke. "Janet, what you did yesterday hurt me deeply. It reminded me of many years when I truly had no one. When I struggled. When people looked at me and saw nothing." Janet cried harder. "I was wrong, Ma. I was so wrong. I am not proud of myself." Hannah nodded slowly. "I know. That is why you are here." Janet lifted her eyes. "I expected you to fire me," she whispered. "But that is not what I will do," Hannah said. Janet blinked in confusion. Then the CEO leaned forward. "Janet, you poured soft drink on me. You mocked me. You shamed me. Yet here you are crying, apologizing, and accepting you're wrong. Many people insult and never admit it." Janet wiped her tears. "So, what will you do to me, Ma?" Hannah closed the file, folded her hands, and said words that made Janet's heart jump. "I will make you my personal assistant." Janet gasped loudly. "What? Personal assistant? Me?" "Yes," Hannah said. "You will work beside me, follow me, learn from me, help me." And every time you call me Ma, you will remember that the person you once disrespected is the person guiding your future." Janet's tears flowed again, but this time not from fear, from shock, from confusion, from gratitude she didn't feel worthy of. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "Most blessings don't come because we deserve them," Hannah said softly. "They come because life believes we can change." Janet bowed her head. Then the CEO continued, "You start today. Sit by my side, take notes, and let us see who you become." Janet stood slowly. "Yes, Ma," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, Ma." When she stepped out of the CEO's office, staff rushed to look at her. Some whispered, some stared, some were confused. "Did she sack you? What happened? Why are you crying?" Janet wiped her face, took a shaky breath, and said, I am now her personal assistant." The hallway exploded in shock. But the real shock, the true transformation, was only beginning, because working beside Madame Hannah would change Janet in ways she never expected. And, before the end of the year, at the annual gala, everyone would see a version of Janet they never believed was possible. But first, she had to survive day one. Janet's first day as Madame Hannah's personal assistant felt like stepping into a new world, one she never imagined she would enter, and certainly not one she felt prepared for. As she walked beside the CEO toward the conference room, heads turned. Some staff glanced in confusion, others in admiration, a few in quiet judgment. How can the girl who poured drink on her now be her PA? Is this punishment or promotion? Maybe she won't last 1 week. Janet heard all the whispers, but she kept her eyes forward. Her heartbeat was loud, but there was a quiet strength growing inside, her shame mixed with determination. She refused to waste this second chance. Inside the conference room, directors and department heads sat, waiting for the CEO. When Madame Hannah entered, they all stood respectfully. "Good morning, Ma." She nodded with a warm smile and took her seat. Janet stood a step behind her, notebook in hand, trying to look professional even though her hands were shaking. The meeting began. They discussed software updates, new branches, investments, and staff performance. Big numbers were mentioned, numbers Janet had never seen in her life. Every time Hannah spoke, the directors listened with deep respect. She was calm, thoughtful, and wise. She asked questions no one expected, gave instructions no one argued with, and handled every problem with surprising gentleness. It shocked many that she didn't speak like someone new to business at all. But Janet noticed something deeper. Every time someone made a mistake, Hannah corrected them kindly. Every time someone seemed confused, she guided them softly. Not once did she embarrass anyone. This is what real power looks like, Janet thought. Not shouting, not insulting, not showing off. At the end of the meeting, Hannah closed her folder. "Thank you, everyone. Please work with Janet closely. She is my new personal assistant." The directors turned to stare. Some tried to hide their surprise. Some failed completely. A few smiled politely, but others frowned. A couple looked annoyed, as if they believed she didn't belong here. One director, Mr. Adekunle, whispered to the manager beside him, "Is this not the rude girl who insulted her yesterday?" The manager whispered back, "Yes, but apparently Madam sees something in her." Janet heard it, and her cheeks burned. But she kept her head down and took notes quickly, wanting to look useful. When the meeting ended, the directors bowed and left the room. But the moment the door closed, Janet exhaled shakily. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Hannah turned to her. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Janet nodded fast. "Yes, Ma, I just want to do well." "You will," Hannah said, "but only if you learn." "I will learn, Ma." "Good. Then we begin now. Follow me." The hours that followed were exhausting. Hannah moved through the building like someone half her age. She visited 3 departments, spoke with staff, checked computers, inspected reports, and reviewed proposals. And Janet followed her everywhere. "Janet, write this down." "Yes, Ma." "Janet, remind me to call the board chairman." "Yes, Ma." "Janet, schedule this meeting." "Yes, Ma." "Janet, send that email." "Yes, Ma." Every "yes, Ma" hit Janet's heart with a mixture of pain and humility. Each time she said the word Ma, she remembered the supermarket. She remembered her pride. She remembered her cruelty. And she remembered how this same woman, gave her a chance. By 1 p.m., her feet already hurt. Her notebook was almost full. Her head felt like it was spinning. She had no idea being a personal assistant was this hard. At some point, she whispered to herself, "How did she forgive me? I don't even deserve to be in the same room with her." But she continued. She refused to stop. By afternoon, the company cafeteria was full of whispers again. Janet entered alone, carrying files and looking exhausted. People watched her. That's the girl. Is she suffering? Maybe the CEO is teaching her a lesson. She looks tired. Well, she should be. Humility is good. Janet didn't reply to any comments. She quietly collected a tray and stood in line. Suddenly, a junior staff member, someone she used to shout at, accidentally bumped into her. Her files almost dropped. The staff girl gasped. "I'm sorry, Janet." Janet responded calmly. "It's okay. Don't worry." The cafeteria went silent. People stared. Janet? Didn't shout? Didn't insult? Didn't roll her eyes? Didn't call her careless? This was new. This was strange. This was growth. The staff girl even smiled in surprise. And Janet, for the first time, felt a small spark of pride, but not the arrogant kind. A warm, humble one. Maybe she could become better. Maybe she could change. Later that day, Hannah called Janet into her office again. Janet stood respectfully. "Ma, you sent for me." "Yes," the CEO said. "Sit down." Janet sat carefully. "How has your first day been?" Hannah asked. Janet smiled weakly. "Hard, but good. I am learning." Hannah nodded. "I know it is not easy. But I chose you for a reason." Janet blinked. "A reason?" "Yes," Hannah said. "Yesterday you made a big mistake, but you showed something many people don't." "What is that, Ma?" "You showed remorse." Janet's eyes softened. "When people feel true remorse," Hannah continued, "they have two choices: hide from it or grow from it." "And you believe I can grow?" Janet asked in a quiet voice. Hannah gave a small smile. "I believe you already are." Janet looked down at her hands, swallowing the knot in her throat. Then she stood up suddenly. Hannah looked surprised. "Janet?" Janet bowed deeply. Not a small bow. A full bow. One from the heart. "Thank you, Ma," she whispered. "Thank you for not throwing me away. Thank you for giving me work instead of revenge. Thank you for seeing something in me, even when I showed you the worst version of myself." Tears filled her eyes again. Hannah's voice remained calm and gentle. "You are welcome, my dear." Janet lifted her head, wiped her face, and took a deep breath. "I won't disappoint you," she promised. "Never again." Hannah nodded. "We will continue tomorrow. Go home and rest." Days passed, then weeks. And slowly, the company changed. Because Janet changed. She arrived early every morning. She worked harder than anyone. She treated every staff member with kindness. Junior staff, cleaners, security, technicians, everyone. No voice raising. No insults. No rolling eyes. Just quiet, respectful, genuine effort. Whenever someone made a mistake, she corrected them gently. Whenever someone spoke rudely, she didn't return it. Whenever she felt tired, she remembered, "Ma believes in me." And she pushed on. People noticed. Some whispered, "She's different now. Maybe people really do change. She's actually nice." Others admired her. "She works so hard. She's more humble than before. She smiles now." And a few even said, "She might become something big one day." Janet heard everything, but she didn't let it get to her head. She remembered who she used to be. She never wanted to return to that person. Never again. One Wednesday morning, the entire staff gathered in the auditorium for the announcement of the Staff of the Year award. Everyone expected a top manager or a high-performing engineer. But when Madam Hannah stepped onto the stage, her eyes were bright. She held the microphone and smiled warmly. "This year," she said, "the staff who will receive this award is someone who has changed, someone who has grown, someone who has shown humility, strength, and true kindness." People whispered. Managers sat straighter. Engineers smiled proudly. But then, Hannah called the name no one expected. Janet Solomon. Gasps exploded everywhere. People turned to stare at Janet, some in shock, some in joy, some in disbelief. Janet stood frozen. "Me?" she whispered. Chioma pushed her gently. "Go, Janet, go." Janet walked forward slowly, tears in her eyes. She stepped onto the stage. Hannah placed the award in her hands. Then she took the microphone again. "Many of you don't know this," she said, "but the first day Janet and I met, she poured a soft drink on me." The entire hall gasped loudly. Whispers everywhere. "She did what? How is she still working here? This girl is brave, oh." Janet bowed her head, tears falling. "But," Hannah continued, "instead of choosing anger, I chose to give her a chance. And instead of rejecting that chance, she embraced it." She smiled at Janet. "She has become one of the most hard-working people in this company, and today she is our Staff of the Year." The hall clapped. Some stood. Some cheered. Some cried. Janet lifted the microphone, her voice shaking. "Forgive me if I cry," she began. "I used to be proud, rude, and careless with my words, but Ma showed me kindness when she could have destroyed me. She treated me with love when I treated her with shame, and that kindness changed my life." Her tears fell harder. "I will never forget it, and I will never stop trying to be better." The hall erupted in applause, but this was not the end. Something even bigger was coming. Something no one saw coming. Something that would change everything at the gala night. The night of the Crosstech annual gala was brighter than any night Janet had ever seen. The event hall glowed with gold chandeliers and soft blue lights. Guests arrived in glittering outfits, the sound of laughter and live music filling the air. Long tables, dressed in white and gold, lined the room, and the red carpet shimmered like a river of fire. Everywhere she looked, people smiled and took pictures. Everywhere she walked, they nodded at her with respect. Janet stood near the entrance, in a simple but elegant cream gown. Her natural hair styled neatly. She carried herself with grace, quiet, humble, and grateful. It felt unreal. 3 months ago, she was the girl who poured soft drink on a widow. Tonight, she was the celebrated Staff of the Year, standing among directors, investors, and top leaders. Chioma hugged her from behind. "You look like a princess," she whispered. Janet laughed shyly. "Thank you, I'm still shaking inside." "You deserve tonight," Chioma said. "You worked hard, you changed." Janet shook her head gently. "No, someone changed me." She turned toward the entrance, and there she was. Madam Hannah. The CEO walked into the hall, dressed in a deep royal blue lace gown with soft pearls around her neck. Her grey hair was wrapped in a matching head tie, and the warmth in her eyes made her look radiant. The entire hall stood for her. The applause was loud, long, and sincere. This wasn't just respect for her position as CEO. This was respect for her character, her kindness, her leadership. Janet felt tears rise just seeing her. How did she forgive me? How did she see something in me, even when I couldn't see it myself? As Hannah walked to her seat at the front, people greeted her warmly. "Good evening, Ma. You look beautiful." "Ma. Congratulations on your first gala as CEO." She answered each person with the same gentle smile. Eventually, the event began. There was music, dancing, laughter, delicious food, and bright stage lights. But everyone waited for the moment they knew would come. The CEO's speech. When it was time, the host stepped onto the stage and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as we welcome the CEO of Crosstech, Madam Hannah Oladipo." The hall erupted in applause once more. Hannah walked onto the stage. She held a microphone gently, as if it were fragile. When the applause settled, she began with a smile. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to celebrate not just our company, but our journey, our growth, our second chances, and our shared hope for the future." The crowd clapped softly. Hannah continued, "When my son passed away and left this company in my care, I was scared. I did not know if I could carry such a big responsibility. But I learned something important." She paused. "Leadership is not about knowing everything. It is about learning every day." People nodded. "And sometimes," she continued, "life sends us lessons in the strangest ways." The room leaned in. "That is why today, before we celebrate our achievements, I want to acknowledge a young woman who showed me something powerful." Janet swallowed hard. She knew this moment was coming. Still, her heart pounded. "Some of you already know," Hannah said softly, "that the first time Janet and I met, things did not go well." Laughter rippled lightly across the hall. "But what many of you do not know," she continued, "is how deeply that moment touched me. Not because of the insult, not because of the humiliation, but because I saw the world through her eyes. The hall grew quiet again. You see, Janet looked at me as someone weak, someone poor, someone unimportant, and she treated me the way the world often treats those who have nothing. Hannah raised her head, her eyes shining. But when she discovered the truth about me, something changed. Not in me, but in her. People turned toward Janet now. She felt hundreds of eyes but didn't flinch. She came to me, Hannah said, crying, apologizing, and ready to accept any punishment. But what touched me most was this. Her regret was real. Her remorse was deep. And her desire to change was sincere. The hall was silent. Many people make mistakes, Hannah said, but not everyone grows from them. She shifted her gaze to Janet. Today, that same young woman is standing among us, not as someone ashamed of her past, but as someone transformed by it. People clapped, louder and louder. Tonight, Hannah said, I want all of us to remember something. Kindness is not for the perfect. Kindness is for the broken. And second chances are not for the strong, they are for the humble. A wave of emotion swept through the hall. And now, Hannah added, smiling warmly, I would like to invite Janet Solomon to the stage. The applause filled the entire building. Janet stood slowly, breathlessly, and walked toward the stage. Every step felt like a story. Every heartbeat felt like a prayer. When she reached the stage, Hannah opened her arms. Janet walked straight into her embrace. The hall melted with emotion. Then a microphone was placed in Janet's shaking hands. She looked out at the sea of faces. People she once ignored, people she once felt above, people she once feared. Her voice trembled. Good evening, everyone. The hall softened. I stand here today with a heart full of gratitude and a lesson I will never forget. She took a breath. I was not a kind person. I used to think being strong meant being loud, and being proud, and treating people any way I liked. She looked down for a moment, then up again. But life taught me something, and that lesson came from the woman standing beside me. Hannah smiled gently. Janet's tears began to fall. The first time I met her, I insulted her. I mocked her. I poured a drink on her. I thought I was powerful. I thought I was better. The hall remained silent. But when I found out who she really was, something broke inside me. I realized how ugly my actions were, and instead of punishing me, she gave me a seat beside her. She wiped her eyes. She didn't just forgive me, she believed in me. She helped me grow. She taught me humility. She taught me kindness. She taught me that we are all the same, rich or poor. Janet turned to the audience. So tonight, I want to say this. If you ever get a chance to be kind, be kind. If you ever get a chance to give someone a second chance, give it. Because kindness may not change the world, but it can change a person. And that person might become their best self. Like I did. The hall burst into applause again, louder, warmer, more emotional than before. Hannah placed a hand on Janet's shoulder. You have made me proud, she said softly. Janet whispered, Thank you for not giving up on me. The gala continued with music and celebration, but everyone kept talking about the CEO and her assistant, about second chances, about kindness, about growth. That night, Janet walked outside into the cool air. She looked up at the stars. I will keep becoming better, she whispered to herself. For her, for me, for everyone. Behind her, Hannah walked out slowly. Are you going home? She asked gently. Janet nodded. Yes, Ma. It was a beautiful night. It was, Hannah said. And your journey has just begun. Janet smiled. Ma, thank you for everything. Hannah squeezed her hand. Thank you too, for teaching me that even the hardest hearts can soften. The cars pulled up. Drivers opened the doors. People watched from afar. The CEO and her assistant entered the same car side by side. A new chapter of their lives had begun. One built on kindness, humility, and second chances. What is your view about this story? If you were in Madame Hannah's shoes, would have forgiven Janet? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.